Tonight on KGW News.
The yeas are 222, the nays are 209.
A vote in the House, then a signature from the president brings the longest government shutdown in American history to an end. While the fallout won't end that fast.
And in Newport, the community packed council chambers worried that ICE may open a new facility here.
Immigrants are the backbone to our community. They are our workers, our bosses, our neighbors, and our family.
Plus, a Portland woman recovering from a brutal dog attack pleads for help finding its owner.
They didn't even say, "Oh, I'm sorry," or something, nothing, not even a word.
Then later, how the holiday spirit rolled its way into downtown. Good evening. We begin tonight with an end to the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko, and while the president has officially signed the bill that reopens the government, some impacts like flight cuts are set to linger. NBC's Garrett Hake kicks us off.
After 43 days, the government shutdown is over.
The bill is passed.
House lawmakers voting tonight to reopen the government. The vote tight, with 2 Republicans joining most Democrats in opposition. But in the end, Speaker Mike Johnson got the bill across the finish line.
All this was utterly pointless and foolish. This outcome was totally foreseeable.
House Democrats unhappy the bill does nothing to address the rising cost of health care.
Donald Trump and Republicans made the decision to shut the government down. Would rather do that than provide health care that's affordable to working class Americans.
The president taking a victory lap.
This is a big day, big night. It's very important what has taken place, because we've seen how good government can be and how bad government can be.
But the 43-day-long shutdown has caused chaos in the sky for millions of air travelers. Today, the Trump administration ordering more flights cut due to a shortage of air traffic controllers. But ending the shutdown will still mean travel trouble for flyers, because airlines need time to get back to full capacity. Expect more cancellations and delays. This legislation will fund SNAP benefits through September, and furloughed workers will get their back pay, although it's not entirely clear when those checks will come out. But this bill only funds the rest of the government through January, and healthcare prices remain a political sticking point, meaning we could see another shutdown early next year. Garrett Hake, NBC News, the White House.
By the way, Oregon's members of Congress all voted along party lines, with the state's sole Republican in the House, that's Cliff Bentz, being the only one to support the bill. In Washington, Congresswoman Marie Glueson-Camperez was one of only 6 Democrats in the House to support the bill ending the shutdown, saying in part, quote, "The last several weeks have been a case study in why most Americans cannot stand Congress. None of my friends who rely on SNAP would want to trade their dinner for an ambiguous D.C. Beltway messaging victory. I'm glad this ugly scene is in the rearview mirror," end quote.
They are the very fabric of our communities.
In Newport tonight, a packed house at City Hall as some stood up for their immigrant neighbors and expressed outrage over what appears to be growing evidence that ICE plans to build some sort of facility in the coastal city. Catherine Cook has the latest.
It was an emotional night here at Newport City Hall. A lot of tears, a lot of opposition to any plans for bringing ICE to town. There are still a lot of unknowns here, and elected officials say that's the point, describing feds as working within the shadows with zero transparency. No ICE! No ICE! Frustration and fear in Newport, where city leaders say plans for an ICE detention facility appear to be underway. Hundreds of people packed City Hall to oppose those plans, whether real or rumored. That includes a young girl whose father is currently in ICE detention.
No one deserves to get picked up. My dad was my everything.
My God, that's what we're fighting for. That her father was dragged in the street, hauled off, and that impacted this whole community.
Newport Mayor Jan Kaplan vowed to fight any plans for an ICE facility on the coast. He says the city was tipped off last week when a third party filed a letter of intent to lease several acres near the airport for federal use. But on Wednesday, the city said that letter of intent had been withdrawn. Even so, State Representative David Gomberg noted other plans signaling an ICE facility are still in motion. That includes business inquiries from federal contractors.
Septic companies are being solicited for bidding to remove up to 10,000 gallons of human waste each day from the Newport airport.
And late last month, Newport's only Coast Guard helicopter was quietly relocated to North Bend, triggering mass opposition over safety concerns.
We need that helicopter here. If we don't get that helicopter here, lives will be lost.
Mayor Kaplan says the feds haven't answered the city's requests for information. Same with questions posed by Oregon's congressional delegation. On Wednesday, they sent a letter to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem demanding clarity on the government's plans in Newport.
Right now, there's no question before us from the feds. You know, we can't answer a question that hasn't been asked. Nobody's trying to lease anything at the moment. If they were, I think they'd be stupid, but we'd have an answer.
City officials say right now they're figuring out what to do next, what the city council can do to prevent ICE from coming to town. They say they are incredibly grateful for all of the support within Newport and surrounding communities. In Newport, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
At least 24 people that are part of the vibrant community of Salem were ripped away from their families early in the morning.
Well, that is the feeling today from an Immigrants' Rights Coalition after it says federal agents detained at least 24 people in Salem on Tuesday. They say at least 9 people were taken from a van, or they were farm workers who were headed to work. The advocates accuse ICE of breaking windows in a van and ramming another car near Portland Road and Ward Drive.
We want to make sure that people have access to their attorneys. We want to make sure that families are prepared because it's really scary what's happening right now.
We are working to get the names of those detained and information on their status. So far, ICE and Homeland Security have not responded to our requests for comment. All right, let's take you outside now on what was another beautiful and rather warm November day, and really hope you soaked it all up since a change is now in your forecast. Joe's here with the first look at the timing. Hey there, Joe.
Hey there, David. It's not a big change. Yes, it's going to be a little bit cooler by only a couple degrees and cloudy with a few showers. So we're kind of done with the sunshine, at least for now, but I guess it is kind of a lot of changes for tomorrow. But looking at downtown Portland from our Pioneer Park building camera, yeah, downtown's already getting ready for the holidays as the Christmas tree arrived earlier today. Right now we're seeing a temperature of 54 degrees. You know, earlier tonight we did see some light sprinkles and some drizzle, and that's what we could be seeing heading into tomorrow morning. But for the most part, it's going to be more dry than wet to start off your Thursday. Temperatures earlier this afternoon were in the low 60s. Scappoose almost got into the mid 60s, and yeah, very mild along the Oregon coast, up and down the beaches today. So overnight, a weak system moves in, a few light showers, and I think we'll start to see those rain showers pick up by the afternoon hours. I'd say by 3-4 o'clock tomorrow. There will be some spots of morning fog, and kind of an update to the weekend forecast. It's looking to be more dry than wet for both Friday into Saturday, but I am tracking some big changes that arrive heading into Sunday and into the early part of next week. I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes.
Still nice when it's not a washout. Thanks, Joe. Let's get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now. The CEO of a local environmental tech company who caused mayhem on I-5 cut a deal with prosecutors, one that means he's now walking free. In June, Alexander Wick slashed tires, threw traffic cones, threatened drivers, and claimed to have a homemade bomb. It turns out it was a soda keg packed with nails and bleach. A judge found him guilty today, but as part of a plea deal, Wick was sentenced to 120 days in jail, time already served, so he was released immediately. Investigators say 68-year-old Rutilio George was the man hit and killed while riding his bike last night on Highway 43 between South Portland and Lake Oswego. Sheriff's deputies say he appears to have lost control of his bike, possibly after hitting a rock on the shoulder. George, or Jorge, fell and was hit by an SUV headed south. Authorities say the driver stayed at the scene and hasn't been cited. And Portland City Council tonight shot down an idea to cut back funding for homeless camp removals. The proposal, introduced by Councilor Angelita Murillo, would have cut $4.3 million from the impact reduction program. Her main goal was to reduce the number of sweeps that she says are traumatizing for those who live in camps, but others argued cutting back on camp removals would be harmful to surrounding neighborhoods. In an update tonight, could the I-5 Rose Quarter project, which includes widening the freeway and building a cap that would reconnect parts of the Albina neighborhood, be put on hold permanently? Alma McCarty's in the newsroom. Alma, sounds like a big money problem.
Yeah, David, the first phase of construction is already underway. However, we're learning those next steps aren't set in stone. And one of the options ODOT confirms is stalling the next phase.
Inside a Northeast Portland church,
We've been holding them about monthly since 2020.
the Historic Albina Advisory Board and Community Oversight Advisory Committee meet with transportation leaders about the I-5 Rose Quarter project decades after the initial construction of the interstate.
Yeah, it was one of several projects that kind of cut through and devastated the Albina neighborhood at the time. It used to be kind of the central black neighborhood.
This $2 billion improvement project aims to widen I-5 and build a 1,500-foot cover over the freeway, reconnecting and repairing the historic neighborhood. Bryson Davis is part of the advisory board and calls this moment in the project timeline a tenuous one.
We've got an administration that is looking to cut funding for a lot of projects like this and for a lot of initiatives like this, and any small foothold they can get on a lot of these projects as an excuse to claw back money, they take. And that's what they did here.
The Trump administration recently revoked nearly $450 million in federal grant money for the freeway cover.
That left us in a position where we have to continue to think about, okay, what is the right next step and what are the things available to the project.
And now ODOT's looking to present all possible pathways forward, which could include delaying the next phase of the project until they identify other funding.
It could be devastating.
Other members of the committee and board voiced a need for action.
We don't need to be sitting at this table unless we're going to be an active agent to make some change in our community for the best of where we're trying to go with this.
The Oregon Transportation Commission will decide what comes next when it comes to this project. Although the topic was originally on the agenda tomorrow morning, it has since been moved to a meeting in December. David?
Yeah, years in the works and still so much uncertainty. Thanks, Alma.